Let's have a play with the 110 ScrawlrBox.
Hey Scrawlers, I'm Kat from ScrawlrBox. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I've got the 110 zine here and we're going to get into some of those tips and tricks, get a little creative with these supplies. Let's get into it.
This ScrawlrBox was made for experimenting. The Karin markers featured in this month's box can be used in so many different ways to create all sorts of effects, most of which you will find in this handy little zine that comes with each box. Got some tips and tricks from the artist as well, so let's get into something more creative with them.
It helps the speaker lead his audience into the scene he described. By creating an
As always, I'll be using the paper supplied in the box, and this month it was a cold press watercolour paper. That means it's got a nice smooth surface to work on. Got a couple of added extras to help me today, so I've got an eraser, ruler and a pencil. Oh, and a palette and some water as well, because we're going to get into some of the watercolour tips. First things first, I'm going to do my initial sketch, and I'm just using a regular graphite pencil for this, keeping the lines nice and light. I find doing a border first also helps me keep the rest of the work in proportion. Sketch done, time for the fun bit. First up, we're going to do the background and I'm going to create a wash. So I'm going to scribble out some ink on the palette and add plenty of water. The ink stays nice and bright still, so I'm still going to have a lovely canary yellow. However, it's going to be slightly less opaque, so it gives it more of a delicate vibe. Perfect for backgrounds. I'm going to let that completely dry before moving on to my next stage, which is the snake. I want to make a new colour, which you can do by mixing on a palette. So I'm mixing in the red and the yellow to make my orange, and I'm just going to play with a few different variations here, testing them out as I go to make sure I get the orange that I want. We're going to start light, so we'll add more water. I've not paid attention to be neat and tidy with this. I've gone in using the shape of the brush just to give a little bit more texture to the background. That way you're left with some brush marks, and I think it looks quite nice. A bit more organic-y and snake-like. It was what I was looking for. On to the next layer, and we're going to use the Lyra Rembrandt Polycolour colouring pencil, what a mouthful, in blue. Making sure that pencil is nice and sharp so it applies to the page with more precision. By alternating the pressure you hold the pencil and the angle, you can mix up the tones, so you'll get lighter lines and darker lines. It just gives it a bit more character. Erasing the graphite as I go as well. Adding in bits of mark making, I've added some hatching here, just for a bit of visual interest. Makes my eyes happy. I love the way blue and orange really pop against each other, and that's what happens when you use a contrasting palette. Now I'm going to build up the orange in the snake by adding in some more details using the same orange that I've made before. However, I've made it a bit darker, so I've not added as much water. While it's still wet, I went in with just the marker on its own, so I got the red-orange marker and just went over a few more of the details just to build up some more contrast with the dark and the light. I like the way it looks on the page. Now I want to paint the underbelly of that snake, and I want it to look slightly darker. So I'm going to play around with a few variations using the blue and red, and maybe even adding in the black as well. I'm not going for realism, but I just don't want the colours to look too unmatched. So I think I've decided on using the blue and a tiny bit of the red-orange in there, so it creates a nice grey. So when you use contrasting colours on your page, they can help each other pop. But when you blend them together, it dulls down the colour. So this works well here. The hardest thing is waiting for everything to dry because I have no patience, but I must step back. Adding in a few more details to the oranges. I could have done the snake blue and the orange is orange, but I decided to switch it up. The pencil layers really nicely over the dry ink. You just must make sure that the ink is fully dry in order for the pencil to glide over it better. Onto the Derwent Linemaker, again making sure everything underneath is completely dry, using the same technique of pressing harder and lighter, small lines, big lines, just to give it a bit more character. Building up some subtle shadow using the blue. Then adding in some more line work with my Derwent Linemaker. Getting on to the final bits now, so before I finish it off completely, just making sure all of that graphite has been completely erased from the page. Just adding a border here and then adding some more details to the snake, just for subtle little scales. The red fits in perfectly with this orange. Also layers really nicely, so impressed with these pencils. Of course I have to add in those little bits of mark making, so that's what I'm going to do here to finish this piece off.
By creating an imaginary picture. Usually it's something that moves.
These Karin markers really are super vivid, absolutely adore them.
And there we have it, the 110 ScrawlrBox complete. I can't get over how versatile these markers are. You can make something like that, something like this, the same thing. Love it. Anyway, until next time, keep scrolling.
Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a little like. And as always, please subscribe if you want to see more. Oh, and if you've made it this far, go ahead and put a little orange in the comments. Bye!